I have two sisters, they're called the Neva sisters. They're great videos. I use them now in my class. Now there's a little in the book, I assign assignment. I can take that and put that in with a puzzle, assign a puzzle, so they can see it both ways. A lot of our labs are still teacher driven and teacher discovered.
I think it would be nice, you know, if you keep moving forward to hear the one day that we're not on the books, but that we have everything here and then just take this on or whatever.
That's the hope. To be honest with you, I hope the state would at some point get on board and with Google Classroom or with Schoology, whatever, snow day, here's your assignment, no more snow days. I think we'd all like that on a calendar.
I shared many meetings ago that probably about 15 years ago or more, I was talking to some elementary school students down south, and that's all they really cared. That's all they had back then. They just brought their computer home or laptop per se, and everything was on there. They had no books. So, you know, I look at that 15 years ago and where we are now yet today.
It's a real way to go.
So, yes. So it's nice to see that you're moving this way.
Any other questions or comments on that topic? Thank you so much for coming out and walking us through tonight.
No problem. See you guys. All right, so we call Mr. Geiger up for this as we went to a marine educator workshop in Paris Island, South Carolina. So I'm going to be the tech guy, and then Mr. Geiger is going to introduce our video. He's going to tell me when to hit play.
By the beginning of his first presentation, tech guy is loose.
Yeah, so I need a backup. Yes, very loose.
So I'm the opener. So if you could put the 5 minutes up there, we can graduate 677 kids in 2 hours. We can do this in 5 minutes.
For real? Or less?
Or less. Okay, so as Mr. Cron said, we had the opportunity to go down to South Carolina, Paris Island, where the Marines train, and go through an educator workshop. And I figured it out now after I stepped back and thought about it, that when I was 31 years old, this school district brought me the opportunity to play football again in 95-degree weather in Lafayette. And then when I was 41 years old, they sent me to Paris Island for Marine training. So when I'm 51, I don't know. I don't know if you're trying to kill me or what. But no, obviously I did not go forced. I went in both cases for the football game and for this on my own free will. But I do want to say that I've always been a supporter of the military. But after this opportunity, it's just absolutely incredible what we learned. You think you know a lot of things, and I just want to thank whoever signed the papers to let us go to do this, because it was an absolutely incredible experience. We've learned so much that we can now come back and work with our students, because I don't think they really understand the scope and the depth of what is available to them through opportunities like the Marines. Now, we didn't go down there. It wasn't just exclusively the Marines. They gave explanations about other military services, but of course they're the Marines. They're very proud, so it was largely about that. But we're going to show the video. I think that's going to say a lot of things better than I can. I just want to let you know that in the video, these were newscasters that were not from our area. None of our people went, I guess. It would have been nice if they did, because they would have got more shots of us doing some of the cool things. So they were from, I believe, the Scranton area, and those kind of things. So they weren't focused on us, so we had to like stick our heads in when we could to make sure we got seen. But we'll show this. It's a short video, and then we'll just kind of elaborate on what you see. But just an incredible experience to learn about the opportunities in the military. But then on the opposite side, from a leadership perspective, to learn how the Marines do it and how they train leaders, because every one of those young men come out of there, and women come out of there as leaders. So I think a lot of that left an impact. This was in early April. We both came back looking like Marines at the time. It kind of wore away now, but we did come back rough, tough, and we did up, downs, and sand pits, and it was.
They call those a sugar cookie, because you're pretty sweaty by that time, and then they want you to roll around in the sand, and you come out
well
looking
aware
like
of
a
that.
sugar cookie.
Maybe my son.
And the sand fleas.
Oh boy, they're tough down in South Carolina. So without further ado, I don't want to toot my horn anymore about technology, but you can see how we've used a few pictures of Mr. Geiger and I. So here we go.
32 educators from Eastern Pennsylvania experienced the Marine Corps Recruit Depot Boot Camp on Paris Island, South Carolina. Nearly a dozen of them are from our region, trying to understand what high school students may go through if enlisted into the Marine Corps. Eyewitness News reporter Cody Butler is down south following this journey, and he has more.
Good evening, guys. I'm in South Carolina representing the Scranton area with my half marathon Scranton sweatshirt. It has been a trip to remember. That's right. 42 educators from Eastern Pennsylvania and another 20 from New Jersey are on this journey.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It was a real deal.
Part of camp, new recruits called 3 family members, saying to them, "Don't send mail. I am safe. I'll send letters."
When I say move, you're going to take the knee and say one. Shut up!
The day got tougher from there. The educators learned a form of disciplined respect by saying, "I sir, I ma'am, yes sir, yes ma'am." Drill instructors ran them through sprints, push-ups, planks, all while giving them authoritative attention. Every time
So
these
you guys were the
educators
stars.
are on or off the bus, they are to count,
Recontrol.
so everyone is accounted for.
Every time,
From
all
the
off the bus.
Hazleton and East Stroudsburg area ate with the educators for lunch to talk about their experience so far in boot camp. It was also a time for the teachers to share their experience.
Well, it was another 14-hour-plus day here in South Carolina, from obstacle courses to Marine recruit one-on-ones. This week has really showed me, as well as these educators from Pennsylvania and New Jersey, what Parris Island is all about. They don't just train Marines, they make them.
As tears flowed, educators were kept busy. Completing obstacle courses, jumping over huge hurdles, testing their arm strength, mounting inverted walls. There was even a chance to rappel down this 47-foot tower. What they've learned so far, they say, discipline, selflessness, and an unwavering commitment to others.
They do this for a living, and to be able to trust them as they trust each other, that just was a great experience.
Your confidence is in the Marines. They do a great job of training us, and they do a great job of instilling the fact that they've got you. No matter what, they've got you, and they're not going to let anything hurt you.
Our mission is to introduce you to the call the United States Marine. A Marine is characterized as one who possesses the highest military virtue. He obeys all orders, respects his seniors, so constantly the best in everything he's done. Discipline and spirit are the hallmarks of the Marine. Each one of you can become a Marine if you develop discipline and spirit. We will get every train you, giving up some of you and giving up of yourself.
All right, so there's a throwback to when I was in the Army, in much better shape and I had more hair, but I put those photos in just as he was saying, is that some of you have given up on yourselves. So that is something that I struggled with going through school, wasn't the best athlete, wasn't the best student, and I really was kind of lost. And I would say that the military is typical for someone like me that could help me, get to where I've been. But I think the atypical piece of it is that what really opened our eyes to it is that there were students that could, if they're in their AP classes, they can get ROTC scholarships, hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's so many different programs out there, just not for your typical guy who just graduated high school and didn't really get accepted to a lot of colleges. There's these kids that are very, very highly competitive across the nation for these scholarships that we can reach all of our students. So not just some of our lower achievers or higher achievers or just the middle, all of them, to really give this opportunity. And like Badger said, not just the Marines, but any armed services. So the possibilities are truly endless, and it just makes you sit back and think like, wow, all these things that we've been through is just a small glimpse of it. But when we look at our kids, and I don't want to generalize here, but if I was an AP and my teacher didn't think that I could be the best student in college, or say maybe I just need to mature a little bit, that maybe the military would help me out. That's what I think we really want to reach. And I think truly going forward is that we have the district support and we're looking for your continued support, is to
send additional teachers. So Mr. Geiger and I went, you know, we toughed it out a little bit. We still have some scars, but if we can send maybe 2 or 3 teachers next year of some of those, you know, non-traditional students that they see on a daily basis, is that we can get to them as well and let them know what the possibilities, because they're in the classrooms every single day. They get to know those kids on a different level, and if they can endorse that, and not just from the principal Geiger or the director Ryan, you know, so that's what we're really looking for, your continued support to move forward and have a couple other educators go there next year.
Yeah, just to highlight some of it, like, we did a lot of cool things. We did rappel down that wall, believe it or not. I didn't know if I looked at him and I'm like, I don't know, but once you're up there, you gotta know. Like, we did a lot of neat things and that was fun, but probably the piece you saw when we were sitting at lunch speaking to some of those recruits was probably one of the coolest things. Like, they just yanked those kids out of their platoon. I don't even know if they told them what they were doing, and sat them down with us, and we were speaking with them, and they're so respectful. They're such babies. Like, you look at them in that setting, like, we walk around, we see them in a high school every day, but in that setting they were like babies, and just the transformation in I think they might have been 3-4 weeks in at that point. They got 13 weeks there, and then some of the other things, the Parents' Day, when the parents were able to see their kids at the end of that 13 weeks, right before graduation, just the emotions that went with that. We saw the Marine Band, and just the precision and just the dedication to perfection. And then the graduation, of course, was something that was really, really neat. It had a big impact on me. Again, like I said, I've always respected the military, but it's just an incredible experience. I've been talking to every Marine I can find now when I see them, because now I feel like I was, did it. Which is like 3 days. But we did. We went out on the Crucible, which is their 54-hour, test that they do. They have, what I want to get at the high school, if we can do this someday, they have like team building exercises, stations they have to do as small platoons, and you have to figure out how to do it, and just really, really neat team build, like things that we want in authentic education. And it was a great experience, and I really enjoyed it. And I had to, if I had to fly to get there, and I did it. It was.
And the best part, it was all free. It was paid for by the United States Marines. And they're actively looking for more educators. When we were, bumping elbows with the people from New Jersey and the other schools in Pennsylvania, they left with the same eye-opening experiences, that they want more people to go to this, because we can reach more and more kids to help them, to let them know that they do have options. And maybe if they don't get into their #1 college, they can go here and then they can get it paid for, and they don't come out with all these student loans. So there's just so many pluses to this. Any questions?
Sergeant Kuhn tried to recruit me before he went to you guys.
Were you DOR or dropped on request?
I at the last minute that I pulled out.
And again, the picture of all the Marines that were up there were the people who spent the 4 days with us, and just meeting them. They go off base and have families and have kids and take them to, and then they spend their days as Marines. It's amazing, that transformation that they made. So.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sugar cookie.
They're still part of the Navy and just.
Try and get a sand pit before you are.
Well, originally, when Geiger agreed to start this off, he was going to have everyone do push-ups, but we didn't want to go overboard here. So.
Burley's Gym has boot camp.
Ryan, can you disconnect on your laptop? Thank you.
We have our end of year data report.
So one moment. So you have the 2 traditional files that were presented last year at the middle of the year and the end of the year. And so I duplicated those for you again this year. And then I have those summary slides. So I'd like to review briefly the summary slides and answer any questions that you have. And I also have the DIBELS data as well. So if you just bear with me, I'll get loaded up here. It'll work.
You want me to talk about the Marines some more?
Hold on. Filler.
There you go.
So as I stated, the 2 other reports, they break out all of the individual schools. So you can see where we started at it during the course of the year and where we ended at. This following slide gives us the screening report summary. So this is our district look, right? So from afar, you're looking down at all of our schools, K-1. What we saw was 69% of our students at or above benchmark at year end, which was an 11% increase from September. 66 and on down the line. The reason why grade 3 is highlighted is because grade 3 is a very, very big indicator of future reading success. It is also an area where we are setting goals as a district where we want to achieve. Right now we're at 59%. We want it to be around 64% by year end, so we didn't quite meet that mark. But we did see an 8% increase from the beginning of the school year, and then you can see the other grades that follow. In the far right column, we see mathematics, where we finished the year at, and then the increase, so you can imagine where we started from at the beginning of the year, and there's some healthy increases there that you see in each of the grades moving throughout. One of the things that I will point out at a point of emphasis is looking at grade 6 and 7 and 8, particularly for reading, is that the bar goes up. So it's not the same measurement right at the beginning of the year as it is at the end of the year. So it's not 45% of our kids at the end of the year and we lost 2% somehow by the end of the year. What's happening is that the standard goes up after each of those measurements. So the expectation for a student to be at or above benchmark 40th percentile for a kid in second grade, let's say is 320 scaled score, that goes to a 330, it goes to a 340, it goes to a 350 after each month. And then in May, a student may need 60 or 70 scaled points in order to meet that 40th percentile. So what that's an indicator of isn't that students are falling behind necessarily as much as they aren't keeping pace with that growth throughout the course of the school year. So this is at or above benchmark. And reminder, we use this data to support our MTSS system, our multi-tiered system of supports. So when our students who are not at benchmark, we're taking a look at those kids, we're looking at additional data sets, and we're looking at potential interventions to provide those students with to get them back on track throughout the course of the school year. Our next slide shows student growth. So this doesn't take into consideration, or this does rather take into consideration where kids are starting the year at and where they're finishing the year. So the previous slide basically says all students will be at this point regardless of where they start during the course of the school year. This slide is more indicative of the growth that student made during the course of the year. So starting at a 320, the expectation for that student then is to improve. The 35 SGP means that student is performing better, or their growth is better than 35% of their peers, and that is the target that we use in our district right now. So in K-1, 66% of the students in ELA met their goal. As we move down the line, we see some increases in that percentage. Looking down to the middle school, is one of our lowest points in terms of 49% of those students meeting the target. As we look at that data, one thing that I wanted to kind of bring that we've noticed as a cabinet in some discussions is that we're seeing a lot more growth between September and January than we are seeing in September throughout the end of the year, or that we're seeing in January to May. And so it's a nuance that we're certainly taking a look at. But what we're seeing is that in May, we're not seeing as much growth as we are when we're seeing it from September to January with our students. So these numbers, as I presented, and you got that file from me back in January, you'd see that some of these were 5 or 6% higher in terms of the number of students meeting growth from September to January versus January to May. And part of that too is our state assessment is given in April. And so a lot of times what will happen is there'll be some remediation of skills, some review of skill sets that take place between April and May. And the expectation for this assessment is that kids are moving on. So after they finish, grade 3, they're moving to grade 4. After they finish grade 4, they're moving to grade 5. And so those are the discussions that we're going to continue to have across the district about, why is there that drop off from, let's say, April to May. But the way the reporting works is we do test September, and we do test in January, and we do test again in May. And so we're looking at, that data in 7th grade, 74% of our kids, almost 75% of our kids are meeting their growth target of 35 SGP. And we highlighted that because the state of Pennsylvania looks very closely at 7th grade mathematics. That is essentially pre-algebra across the state. That's what's being assessed is that algebra readiness, right? So our kids hitting that mark in 7th grade really hinges on whether or not they're going to be successful in higher levels of math, like pre-calculus, calculus, on up the ladder is that 7th grade benchmark. So it's an area that we're targeting as well for growth. Questions? Right, so like I said, in the documents you have the full report. You can look at each individual school, each individual grade, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Are there any specific questions from board members?
Meg, I have this. I have the dibbles.
Oh, the dibbles, right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, great.
This is even short. I promise. So in the dibbles report, I presented last year or gave the board a 3-year summary. You've also seen some of this summary data with Read to Lead. But I think it's really important for us to look at. Bethlehem School District has been in the news for similar gains, covered several times and even nationally. And our scores rival and at least compare many of our buildings to what Bethlehem is accomplishing. We're using a similar systematic approach to reading and those protocols in K and 1 and working our way up to grade 2 this year. But as you can see, 91% of our students in kindergarten were at or above benchmark at year end. That is tremendous feat to accomplish, and that it really goes to the hard work of our teachers, our administrators, and of course our students, coming into our system in kindergarten and by year end being able to maximize. And if you look at some of our schools where they started, so at Cheston, 44% of our students at the start of the year, 89% at year end. That's just tremendous work, by our teaching staff and by our students. Paxenosa, 31% of the students up to 85%. So, your investment as a Board of Education and the community's investment in this program is seeing some great successes, particularly in kindergarten, and we are seeing similar gains in first grade at varying levels, but 71% then are continuing up the ladder at the middle school. And remember, now this is year 3, so we're starting to see those gains from 59 to 64 to 71. Those kids where they started the year at 64 and we're still growing. So that trend is continuing, and we're continuing to move forward. And so what we should expect to see is that grade 3 reading indicator where you may have saw 59% start to increase significantly over the next 3 to 5 years. So I was brief. Any questions?
And Mr. Cook, in your first grade, what was their end of year percentages? And I asked that, just so you can get back to me on it, because obviously if you had a great showing this year with your kindergarten, so when those first graders were in kindergarten, what were they scoring at? Just and not right now, but because now they're at 71%, and obviously right. It's different, but it's the same group.
Yeah, so last year that group, would have been the 17-18 group, right, in Dibbles, but on the kindergarten level, right, whereas at 88%, and now they're at 71%. But we're going through a whole other grade level, of work, and those standards then increase. Where we started from is also what's attributed to the summer slide, is also why we're investing heavily in programs that support that. So looking at the programs that we're offering in the summer at Cheston and Paxenosa, our connection and our support of Summer Sizzle through Project is also trying to cut that, because as a former superintendent, when the kids go home for the summer, some kids actually excel. Right. So Star Data allows us to look at May reports right away and look at September, and we can actually measure that summer slide. But you'd be surprised, there's quite a few students who actually increase quite a bit over the summer because they're readers.
Yeah, I think that's why it's critical that you have your summer programs where that reading component is continuing, because then you don't have to worry about that so much.
If you remember this, the Read to Lead report that I gave you back in the winter time, there was a portion in there that talked about the blue zone, and that in essence is the above grade level, and that's one of the indicators. The more the kids filter into that blue zone, the more likely, as an indicator, more likely they will be reading on grade level or above as they move forward. So Mike is right that the skills become more challenging as the kids go through, and so we do see some drop-offs, but then what we hope for is that they pick back up then and master those skills. Some of this is also indicative of the fact that we are partway through first grade and partway through second grade in some of the trainings that we're doing. So I'm very encouraged by the kindergarten scores. Kindergarten has one of the challenging feats that they have a new crop of kids every year, so they have to really keep that teaching at a steady pace in order to produce the number of kids that are reading on level at each year. But the challenge is just as daunting at first grade because they have to rethink how they're teaching first grade because now they have kids coming in who are reading better than what they historically have. So, a status quo is no longer good enough. We have to anticipate what those changes need to be each year in order to keep kids moving along the proper continuum.
Yeah, I think these kindergarten numbers are really, really outstanding. And I mean, it really just shows, it's what we need to do to level the playing field for all of the children when they come into kindergarten to make sure that we get them all where they need to be by the end of that year to get them ready for success after that. And I'm really pleased with that number.
And it does show that zip code doesn't have to be the end all be all, that we can transcend past their zip code and get them to learn.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you. Any members of the public like to be heard on the agenda items for the academics committee this evening? If not, none of these were voting items tonight, so I believe that concludes my report, Mr. Chander.
Thank you very much, Ms. Saga. Mr. Snyder, funding finance.
Yes, thank you. Just two items up here, should be relatively quick. Item 4A, the debt collection agency proposal. I'm going to defer to Mr. Stevens on that if I may for a quick summary.
Yeah, I just wanted to resurrect this idea. We brought it up a couple months ago. There were some questions about how far will we go, how far do they go. There's a big question about taking them to court and all that. It's our call. The level and how far we go is our call, and we can set that stage at any time, and it doesn't have to be consistent. As I said, it's up to us. What I wanted to do was just get an idea from the board. As late as this week, we did receive another proposal, which is more competitive and better for us than what I attached just for your review. So if the board is interested in this, our debt for cafeteria, for one, when the debt was written off last year with the new law, we were at over 10 years like $70,000. We're up to almost $50,000 this year in unpaid. So it doesn't cost us anything. We control how far they go. We've already sent letters of what we're allowed to do by law. And then with the iPads and all the new equipment and the one-to-ones and all that stuff, with all this new equipment, I'd just like to have this resource to give us an edge on trying to recoup this money. So if the board is interested and would like to do this, I'd like to get the final proposals in, and I can revisit through emails with the final number, and then put on a subsequent agenda since we don't have any more committee meetings.
Okay. What did you say? The cafeteria debt is roughly 50,000.
Just this year.
Just for the past year.
Just for this year. And when we wrote it up, when we wrote it all off last year, that was about almost 10 years accumulating. And with the new law, of course, people are taking advantage of it.
You had referenced the equipment. Do we have any idea how much that is? That like? Do we have any idea what that funds us as far as?
No, that's kind of new. But we have students with musical equipment and the iPads and all the computer equipment and staff too. So it's a combination. But there are procedures and agreements for staff and students as well. I don't anticipate that being a big issue with this. But if we get to a point where there's damage or theft or something that it's not our responsibility, it gives us that opportunity to kind of go after it.
So the staff, is it what, probably something related perhaps to like deploying a paycheck or not?
No, we're not, we really can't do that.
You don't use that.
We just want to use, our only avenue is to kind of go after them with formal letters.
A formal process, okay.
Wait,
Okay.
is there sort of threshold then that we would use about?
We can set that.
Okay. I'm not asking
Yeah.
for a number, but
Yeah.
that is the concept. It's not,
Again-
$1.50 like we're sending it.
Right, no, we set the parameters, we have a contract, and we set the parameters of where we're gonna start.
Yeah, okay.
Mike, I had given the solicitor a copy of the contract that was attached to this. And
Okay.
if you get any others, if you would forward those contracts to the solicitor, just so he can take a look at them.
Yeah, I really didn't go after this,
Right.
since we talked last time, because I didn't know where the board was at. But I'd like to, get the proposals and all the contracts, I can meet with, Mr. Floyd, and we can go over the best option, if the board is interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the issue is doing a cost analysis to see what they're charging versus what is our capability of recouping, any revenues off that.
They only charge, on what they
Recover.
recoup,
Okay.
with no cost to us.
And with that one shift, can you just remind me how many schools we're actually talking about? Because a number of our schools, all the children get free breakfast for lunch. So this is $50,000 from 3 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school, or?
Well, most, and I'll just say this, there are other schools that if the parents that don't fill out that form, they're considered delinquent. So this will also help us, we've sent letters to them, fill out the form, then that's not considered a delinquent. We're just trying to, increase the opportunity to get everything in line, so that we are not sitting here with an uncollected debt. Mostly it's from the other
The
schools.
letters for,
The applications.
okay.
For the non-lunch,
For the non-direct.
filling in now, but they're not paying their lunch. So it's.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from the board regarding that? So you're really looking at the concept of pretty much engaging this as a resource for now, is really what you're looking at from the board to vote on this to be an avenue if we so choose to explore it.
Right, I think we'll do a little more, we'll get the other proposals in, I don't anticipate this for the June meeting, and I'll send something out to the board on our findings after consultation with them.
Okay, so there will be more information forthcoming regarding this. Okay, so there won't be a push to put this on the June agenda,
No.
correct? Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments from the board regarding that one? All right, next item is B, which deals with the solicitor's contract. For directly to you, John, or
yeah.
Mike take it?
I'd be happy to describe it. This is a proposal that we appreciate your consideration on. It's a 3-year proposal. It's pretty much all set up the same way. All our districts set up the same way. There's a basic scope of services that retainer is applied to, and in this case, the suggestion here is just to, I think the retainer is bumped up a couple $1,000 each year. And the reason for that is that actually the services that are provided on the retainer are, the value of those are much in excess of what's actually paid. The rate for non-retainer work is basically set in conjunction with whatever insurance company we use. In this case, it's school claims. It's not called CM Region. It's the same thing. The reason that we think that that's a good measure is because they're highly vetted fees that reflect competitive fees for this kind of work. Insurance companies don't pay anything more than they need to, and of course, schools don't as well. Also, there's a provision in here that if we do any bond work for you, that we're not going to charge you a local fee. Pretty much every much is the same. So we appreciate your consideration. In addition to that, Mike and I have spoken, and we'd be very willing to sit down with him and see if we could make any other modifications of the retainer to fold more things in. But that's a process where we have to go back and look to see what kind of services we provide, what the usage was, and then try to push that into the retainer. And we've done that successfully in some other schools. We'd like to see that that's a source of value for the school, because the actual amount of time that could be charged for hourly is typically greater than the retainer. So I think that's a source of value. So I appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone from the board have any comments, questions?
How long have you been a solicitor for the school district?
You don't want some answer like.
Years,
That's well, I've been a solicitor since 2010, but actually for 20 years before that I did.
No, but I mean for the school district, Easton School District.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I've been a solicitor since 2010, but before that, I did pretty much all the employment litigation and
You were special
education. I was special counsel for about 20 years before that. So I've been around. Can't you tell?
Okay, any other comments or questions from the board?
Just one quick thing, and it's June, and I know, Mike, do you have a timetable on that transportation consultant when they will have a report to you?
You know, we just received a draft about 2 weeks ago, and we're looking at it, and so they're waiting for us to get some kind of feedback and then provide the final draft. If you'd like, I can send that draft to the board for review.
No.
Okay.
Whenever you guys get the final draft, and that suffices. I just know that we're ending the school year. I know we brought them on, so.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So the plan will be to have this on the agenda in 2 weeks for approval. Item 4B, anyone from the public to be heard on anything from budget and finance, the two items we discussed tonight? Okay. So we have one voting item, item 4B, the solicitor's contract will be on the June agenda, and then the debt collection agency, there may be more information coming, perhaps another bid as well in the future. So this is still something on, and that's the end of the committee report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snyder. Moving to buildings and grounds, Mr. Fano.
Thank you. The first item we have on here is for about the capital campaign for Cottingham Stadium. And there's been a few documents that have been added to the agenda, and they're, if I go in sequence, doesn't totally make total sense, but we'll go down the line. One was a bid description. In other words, looking at a bid, and this will be something that the board, is a negotiable item, so we will address some of that in the executive session. But it's setting guidelines and everything and going out and receiving bids for when to do naming, so that multiple types of businesses and everything then can submit and then have like an official opening, and that the highest bidder could get their naming done. The next item is the Cottingham Stadium Capital Campaign event banner. Looking at this, there were thoughts and suggestions that based on some things that are going on, and obviously the next couple of pieces here will be paid out of some of the funds received. And one is, when you do something like this, a closing and opening and some other events that may be associated with it because of raising funds, that you need somebody to help coordinate those efforts. And we're looking at these people as being all 1099 type positions and everything that would be handled by the district. So one was a capital campaign event planner, another one was the fundraising coordinator, because coordinating between hopefully the donors and everything, as well as then working with the possible other groups, and also working with our foundation on getting the funds and making sure the paperwork and everything's done so that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed as far as that goes. The next one is a marketing person. Everybody keeps saying, well, if you're going to put documents out, you know, they ought to have a good look to them and everything, and making sure that you do the correct marketing whatever type of media you're using and everything, so that it's out there appropriately and drawing the attention that you want it to draw. And the last document is the actual agreement with the foundation for the purpose of how the money would flow into them and then eventually flow over to the district. Because, just bringing it in, they have the 501(c), and that way it keeps everything nice and clean. So those are the various documents that are attached tonight for discussion. And again, trying to keep this project moving because, in a way, from a timeline point of view and looking to raise funds based on where we are with the stadium project, we're a little bit behind the 8 ball in getting it moving. So, comments?
And Mr. Graham, I had talked to you today about under that
yes.
agreement with the foundation, under on page 2, 3.1.
Yep.
I think it was.
Last sentence.
It's to be quarterly instead of monthly, I think was from the notes that I had.
Correct.
Okay, and then under the other one, the last sentence, once again, with the total funds collected by the foundation during the fundraising campaigns that are pledged. So I think the word not needs to be stricken out there when I check my notes.
Correct.
So I obviously will make those adjustments. Okay.
And and I know Alyssa was working with Keely on all when actually Keely had reviewed all these documents and everything, and Alyssa was handling most of them, correct? And so Alyssa, you can get with Keely to make sure.
I was right at the bottom of that then.
Really important for the word.
Yeah, very important. 3-letter word, very important.
So other questions and comments?
Those are my concerns.
The next item on our list then, moving ahead then, capital projects update. Josh.
Good evening. Just a quick update for the summer projects. All of them have started from the perspective of submittals, the initial pre-construction meeting for each one of them, specifically at the high school, the track resurfacing and synthetic turf replacement. We've been meeting with the contractors bi-weekly for the past several weeks. Product submittals are being completed. The permit with Palmer Township is being completed, so things are progressing very well from that perspective. Not a whole lot of activity on site yet. They did start to remove the synthetic turf, the existing synthetic turf, but really haven't started the excavation in earnest, but that will be starting shortly. The high school facade cleaning project is underway. The cleaning has started. A color has been selected for the new paint and sealing product to really brighten and freshen up that facade. That contractor has started in some areas that aren't affecting any circulation or instruction. The middle school data project, we're having another update meeting with the contractor and also Integra, who will be providing some of the network components with respect to switches, wireless access points. So there's some coordination that needs to happen between Battaglia, who is the installing contractor, and Integra, just as far as when Integra can come in and start lighting up the new switches and switching over from the old system to the new. So again, it's mostly upfront sort of coordination work until the students are gone and they can really come in and start the work in earnest. But all of the summer projects at this point are off to a good start from being coordinated with school staff, with Mr. Case's department and the custodians to make sure that summer cleaning activities are being coordinated with contractor movement. So that's basically the summer 2019 capital update.
Josh, while you're there, where do you stand in the drawings and coming up with the drawing and everything for the building by the track out of the high school?
We will have a preliminary plan later in the summer. If we could maybe look at that at the next meeting. We can still be prepared to finish documents get those out to bid in the fall timeframe, and hit a construction timeframe for the spring, then next summer for completion.
And just thinking about that, I know Cottingham's coming up, but I think we'll be having a special meeting on the Cottingham. We'll do a special buildings and grounds, so maybe we can have it for that meeting.
Sure. Yeah, that would be for the August timeframe.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Palmer School demolition timetable.
Yeah, so understanding that the intent would be to get that building taken care of from a perspective of the environmental cleanup, asbestos removal, and demolition. We did start looking at a tentative time frame here. You may remember that there were some existing oil tanks and some components related to transformers from an environmental standpoint that needed to be taken care of ahead of demolition. So there is some final testing that's needed from the oil tanks that were removed years ago to close out completely some monitoring wells, groundwater monitoring wells that were in place. So before the building is demolished, that needs to happen as far as the final testing of underground storage tank soil and water, and also the asbestos abatement. So we're looking at likely awarding the contracts for abatement and demolition in the September timeframe, September 2019. At that point, any impacted soil, the storage tanks can be removed, and obviously the asbestos abatement can take place up through about November 2019. Okay? So any other activities that may happen in the building, we understand that some emergency services may want to use the facility for training purposes. That would need to be coordinated with any abatement procedures. Obviously, we don't want to create a situation where dust is being created with asbestos fibers, still present. So depending on the scope of what the departments would like to do, that could either happen before or after the abatement process. So again, that would be within basically the October to November timeframe, based on the schedule. And then the building demolition would take probably about another 8 weeks after that. So we'd be looking approximately February of 2020 to be complete with the demolition of the building. Okay? So after the demolition, because we're building the new building on the existing footprint of the site, there is one final round of geotechnical testing that needs to happen. Obviously, we can't complete the geotechnical testing underneath the existing building, but once that is down, there are a couple more soil borings that are needed from a geotechnical standpoint. So that work would happen in the March timeframe. So after that point, the site would either be stabilized, or depending on where we are in the process with getting the new building approved, we can move right into the next phase of construction. So, essentially having demolition and a stabilized site by March 2020.
Other questions for Josh right now?
Actually, Mr. Fable, if I may, related to Palmer, do we have a plan yet, or what's going to be the plan for some of the equipment that needs to be usable? Do we have a list of that? Because we had an inquiry from a group about some of the kitchen equipment already. Just didn't know if there was an update with that.
We started talking at the last meeting about getting set for an auction, and I think Mr. Simonetto was going to look into some things there, but we've also had inquiries too about purchasing desks and everything else that are there. So there's there's more interest than just in equipment. So it's a matter of how we want to dispose of all those types of things, the desks and whatever other materials may be in there. We may find ceiling tiles that people want to purchase. We may, so it's really coming down with a list of items, and or seeing where the interest may be.
Okay.
So maybe because we would have to do that somewhere probably in the October timeframe before the asbestos and everything.
Are we going to set policy for, are we ever going to get rid of equipment, or we're just going to talk about different options and
Different options.
Okay.
And again, once we do that, we can also start to think about following, getting set for the same type of routine when we talk about Cheston and everything too.
Okay, yeah, I don't know that we have any clear policies that really restate all donation and things like that for equipment. As far as I've been looking through, as far as property, there isn't. Okay, so it's going to be pretty much just
And that's what most districts do. They come up with, which way do we want to dispose of it, and that's it. Take the vote, hire the person, and whatever, and move forward.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else? Josh? Cottingham?
Just the agenda items?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, at Cottingham, as you can see, the agenda items are listed. We're starting to develop the project bid alternates, so you might remember from previous projects, those are sort of optional bid items the board can either select or not select, usually driven by budget, sometimes driven by preference of vendor, system type, that type of thing. In the case of Cottingham, one of the bigger alternates that needs to be considered will be for the athletic lighting. The standard high school lighting level is approximately 50 foot candles. So foot candle is just a measure of how bright the playing surface is. Again, typically with high school sports, it's an average of 50. If a semi-pro team were to use the venue, especially for soccer, that lighting level requirement jumps up to 120 foot candles. So almost 3 times the amount of athletic lighting needed. So that will be an alternate as far as what the cost increase will be from the standard high school venue up to a more robust semi-pro level should the venue be used for other items. Okay. There will be some other alternates that we can talk about next month, but for now, for the agenda item, we just wanted to hit that one because that's going to be, I think, more substantial from a cost standpoint than some others.
Well, if I may interrupt there.
Sure.
Because that item came up because there's been a request submitted to us by the Steel Club for the consideration of using the Cottingham Stadium, considering that it's going to be a grass field for their home games. There's a lot of discussions and negotiations that have to go on, and with them sort of moving forward on that idea, but at the same time that we're moving forward on bidding the stadium, if there's going to be any consideration at all, you need the lighting. But by making it an alternate, if we decide not to do it, then it drops off, it's only an alternate bid. One of the other things as an alternate, if we even move ahead with it, the discussion is that lighting could be, the extra additional lighting could only be turned on for some events and not used for all events. So it's not an overhead that way. As Josh mentioned, cost and everything, there's things to look at that those costs are not borne by the district, but are borne otherwise as well. And those are all things that have to be worked out. So when that's on the agenda to vote on for the alternate, if that is a positive vote, then we know we're going to be moving ahead with having other discussions on the negotiations for how that could possibly be afforded or how it could possibly be paid for.
Just a question in layman's terms, are these brighter light bulbs or are they more light fixtures in terms of what this additional lighting means?
It will be more light fixtures in this case.
And they are adjusted.
They are.
Right.
Yes, and Mr. Fane made a good point. It doesn't always have to be at that level. They can be trimmed, they can be dimmed,
It can
switched
be
on quickly.
Okay.
With this LED technology, that's what's nice. It can really be customized very quickly.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other questions on that? It's a light requirement.
It is That's a stipulation of the league that that venue needs to maintain a minimum of this level. Okay, the other item at Cottingham is related to the press box and the TV station broadcast. We had contacted Service Electric and RCN to get a better feel for how they operate on game day, what types of things they need. So at the time, a couple months ago, we were basically looking at the home press box, the new home press box, as the landing pad for the TV broadcasts, especially with respect to the camera locations. Some discussions had come up after that, basically questioning, well, we're going to have this nice brand new home side of the field. Would it be better to put the cameras on the visiting side and broadcast from there so that the TV audience sees our brand new home side of the stadium? So we started going in that direction and prepping the platform on the visitor side accordingly to accommodate the TV stations. When we went back to Service and RCN, they had similar concerns, mostly from the perspective of the TV, the viewing angle. Obviously, the visitor stands are going to be much lower than the home stands. They felt that vantage point would not be ideal for the camera placement. That was one concern. They had a couple of other concerns which I can share with you. One of them being that the band performs to the home side of the field, so at halftime the TV broadcast obviously would be at the backs of the band, which I don't think you would want. Some additional seats will be lost to accommodate the placement of the cameras. So what we're anticipating are to have removable platforms that will be brought in and placed for the camera placement. If we were to have both sets of cameras on one side of the field, they would likely share a common platform. There'd be two of them, and that would take up more seats than if we were to only have one set of cameras on that side as well. There were a couple other concerns, especially related to the placement of the broadcasting trucks. On the home side, we had planned to use the parking aisle that is directly behind the home bleachers so that they could get cables directly up to the press box. On the visitor side, we're really squeezed with room in that alley, especially if now we have not just one set of trucks, but two set of trucks, potentially 4 to 6 vehicles. There's really not a lot of real estate back there on the visitor side to place the trucks and to keep an open alley if needed for any emergency services. So those were some of the concerns that they had brought to us. We just wanted to see if that were to change the direction by the district as far as where to place those people, both from a broadcasting and a camera standpoint.
Josh, can we, while Jim is here, can we refresh the board on what we currently do now?
Sure.
With the TV companies?
So right now, my understanding is Service Electric does broadcast from the visitor side. They place their trucks on a concrete patio, concrete walkway that is closer towards the 12th Street side, closer to Paxinosa in that corner. RCN broadcasts from the home side, from behind the bleachers, right, Jim?
And is the press box, the way it's designed now, on the home side, is there room to keep it the way it currently is?
The press box, the proposed press box on the home side would actually accommodate both TV stations and the other personnel that are needed to operate the game. What would have to happen, though, is the coaching staff, and I believe that's probably how it was going to be planned, Jim. The coaching staff would have to work from the platform above the press box. So if there are, coaches taping or spotters for the coaches, they would be on the platform above. The enclosed press box can accommodate everybody else, including the scoreboard operators, the print media, the announcers, and the TV stations. Okay, so as long as the coaching staff does not need to be in that same building, inside the press box, it can accommodate everybody.
And the coaching staff needs to be sort of in the front row. They can't be in the back. That second level that's inside there.
Not the second level inside, but on top. There's an open air platform on top.
On the outside, it's even
So they're gonna
worse
be
yet.
outside?
But the problem with that is gonna be the fact that they use iPads throughout the game now, so you're gonna have technology out in all weather. And that's the concern I think you're gonna run into, is that coaching now has become technological. They have them on the sideline, they're using them in the press box, so.
And in the press box, you also have, and again, I tried to look at this and lay this out. Mr. Hess as the announcer, we have an offensive spotter and a defensive spotter. So it's not just an announcer. He can't physically pick out the tackler, the running back, and what just occurred. So he has an offensive and defensive spotter. So I don't think both TVs, print media, and everybody can fit in that press box. That's why Service Electric years ago said we would like to go to the visitor side, and that broadcast was beautiful because you always saw 3,000, 3,500 people on TV when Service Electric did the broadcast. And it separated the stations. It watered down the parking situation. They both go to the home side. Right now I set 7 parking spots in the parking lot aside for RCN because they bring 2 announcers. They usually don't drive together. 1 or 2 large trucks that take up more than 1 parking spot. So we bring both TV stations there. Better get 10 to 14 of those spots going, and then some people won't get a parking pass, which it is what it is.
I'm not necessarily endorsing either one.
Right,
I'm just
right,
bringing
right.
forward
Now, the
some
purpose was to
concerns
bring the
that they
concerns
have.
that Josh researched. What about, does the press, can all the staff that's currently in the press box fit in there with one TV station on each?
So what we talked about in one of the public meetings as far as who needs to be in a press box, we had coaching staff, we indicated 6 from each team, 12 total. So 6 obviously would be on the visitor side. Scoreboard operators, we had 3. Print media, we had 2. TV stations, we had 3 for each, total of 6. 1 announcer, 2 spotters for the announcer, and 2 for radio stations. So that was a total of 28 people.
But the press box on the home side showed 16 seats.
It does. So what I'm saying is, if we, assuming that the coaches would be in the platform above, which does have a separate canopy, and the visiting coaches would be on the visiting side, we can accommodate the other 16, including both TV stations, inside the home press box.
And the canopy that you'd be putting up for the home team for the coaches would be similar to the canopy that we're using across the board.
Correct. Yes.
Now let's ask, where was the TV, when you talked about the TV stations, you talked about their cameras being on separate platforms. What's the possibility that the platform that's above the press box, right, could be extended and the TV stations could go up there on either end? Because it's still open.
I think that would be a possibility. One could even stay in the stands and one on top of the platform. Yeah, that's certainly an option. Again, I'm not endorsing one or the other, but there are some concerns with the visiting side supporting, especially if both were
We would lose home side seats by putting platforms up for the cameras, correct?
No, so that's what I was getting at.
No, but we have to have 2 different, service needs one and then RCN needs another, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there were going to be a couple seats used for the platform for the camera. I think at the time the thought was it would be replicated, RCN on one side, service on the other side. If both were to move to one side of the field, I think they'd want to stay close to the 25 or 30 yard line, so they'd want to be kind of close together and likely share a larger platform, which would take up some more seats in between.
And that's on each 25.
Yes.
But then that's not making it elevated. That's what I was asking, that it could be.
So what I'm saying is, one of the companies, if they were both to be on the home side, potentially one of the companies could be in the top of the stands at the 30, the other could be on top of the press box there, as long as it can be shared, adequately with the coaching staff, who's also going to be up.
Because you could expand the top out further than what you have the bottom.
We could see what that does aesthetically, especially. I'm not sure if Randy would be too happy about that, but yeah, we can make some considerations for that.
How large is that platform? Up top?
It's the entire length of the press box, and I don't have that dimension sketched out right in front of me, but it would be the entire footprint of the press box.
I hate to say this again, but I'm like a visual person. I want to see all my options in front of me with the cost.
And do you happen to have the link from last month?
Sorry, Josh. We should have moved Judith first.
No, go to one, and it should have just been from last month.
Do you see it? Sorry. What would you call it?
It was probably started with 19-05. Click on. Last one is Rev. Yeah, that should be it.
Okay.
Put that one.
It's loading, sorry. It's just loading. And you can't advance, I don't think, a PDF, can you?
If you can just go to.
I got the spinning beach ball, sorry.
Oh.
Taking a minute. Okay, here we go. One.
Just scroll. Let me just scroll.
Mhm.
Okay, there you go, Billy.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Now, where are we expanding?
Here's your vision. Okay, so that's obviously the home side. And that's the floor plan, the layout. So those are the 16 seats, stations that would be on the home side in the enclosed section.
So you're saying though, if we even expand that to make it a little bit bigger, we're losing some seats. I mean, I'm just saying, it looks exactly what we have now, but new.
I'm not saying to expand the press box itself.
Yeah?
No, you got a square footage requirement. Unless you want to put an elevator.
I mean, there's a requirement, you need an elevator after one.
I don't think so.
Everybody else has an elevator, does other people have an elevator?
They're probably grandfathered.
I'm still confused on the number. The inside press box.
Yep.
That accommodate the coaches.
16 plus.
It depends on who else you want in there. So
I guess I'm asking that to.
I have this, I laid this out with the coaches a little bit, and we would move the barricades that they have, their dividers, a little bit right or left, because I think we could get away with a 2 or 3 spot inside for the coaches in the front row, because they want to be there to see what's going on and be inside there, open up the window if they need to. They were not happy about having to be on an upper platform in the back there because of not sure the elevation and the sight lines.
Okay, so again, just to clarify, that raised platform, that is inside of the press box.
Correct.
Okay. The coaches would have a very clear open vantage point from.
And that's what we would have to see, what that looks like in there. Yeah.
So Jim, where you see the 2 cameras up there?
Yep.
That's where the coaches would be, up on top. So they would be in the front, first row. I mean, they would be.
It would be up top, the very, very top. Yeah.
That's
Not enclosed.
Go back to that other slide, that's the platform,
Yeah.
that? Is up top?
No, that's inside. That's inside the press box.
So if I can just give a sense of reality, because I'm up there for all the games. Last year, we had 3 games in weather. 2 of the games in severe weather. If you remember, one of the games we had rain sideways. I'm in the press box we have now is enclosed. The bottom level and top level are both enclosed. After that game, after 2 of those games, when I walked out of that press box, I was soaking wet. Shirt, pants, jacket, everything. Because the rain was coming this way. The reason I'm trying to explain that to you, obviously in the new press box, it's not going to be an issue, we're going to have windows. But those coaches that are going to be on that top, that's what they're going to be dealing with. If we have a drizzle or a rain that comes this way, you're fine, because you're covered. But once the wind starts blowing, that's going to be a major issue when they're working with iPads and the different type of technology that they have right now. I think that's the concern. If weather's good, you don't really have an issue. But if weather's bad like we had last year, we're inside and we got soaking wet. Imagine what it's like if you're outside. Just something to think about.
So what is the debate right now? If the structure is going to be built the way it is now, essentially, then we'll figure out, once it's all up and ready, more of who sits where, and we assign that. Because I don't know if we're making changes to the construction of the project, because we can't. We're locked into square footage, right?
We are, but it's also going to impact, especially for the TV trucks, as far as providing certain power requirements, pathways up to the press box, press platform for cabling. So it does, affect the plan for how this is actually put together.
Josh, do we know, do the announcers have to be on the same side of the cameras?
Yes.
So if we move the press to the visitor side, that was one of the suggestions. This press box on the home side wouldn't actually be a press box then, it would just be the coach's box.
Well, depending on what other press you want, if you want any print media or radio broadcast or anything, they could still share space.
Okay.
There are rules about where timekeepers have to be, right, for when the refs address.
You're making it bigger.
We're spending $2 million on the stadium and it's all brand new and we can't figure out how to get a better press
You
box.
can, if we're not concerned about those concerns from the TV, if you're okay with I don't understand why cameras can't be on the other side.
They were explaining that if it's to the left or right for the announcer, he wants to make sure that as you're looking at the game on TV, that it's truly left or right.
Because as it's phone.
Plus activities are all directed, including the halftime shows are all directed.
If
at
the cameras are on the home side and the announcers are on the away side, they are still covered, but we're not then allocating space within our press box for them, and we're able to accommodate our coaches. And they just have to remember, if it's going left, they say right. If it's going right, they say left. They don't.
I mean, Service Electric has been doing that for, I've been the AD 15 or 16 years, for probably 12 or 13 of the last 15, 16 years they've been on the visitor side.
I would hesitate to displace our coaches for the purpose of accommodating TV stations that aren't always going to be at all of our games.
I agree.
And you're putting the announcers out in the same conditions that the visiting coaches are going to be in.
Yeah, if they're on the away side, they're in the covered portion of the away side, right?
Yeah, well, the away side, so I mean, that's the away side.
But they would be inside, the announcers.
Well, it's not really inside. It's open. You can't.
Well, I know, but it's not. They're not.
Why can't we close it?
Because we'd be over the square footage.
Yeah, they're.
That's like windows?
So it would be open just like it is now.
Yeah, it'd be open just like the other side is open. Like the top of the other side is open, it's going to be the same way.
No, I'm saying is the TV crew would sit in the visitor side that's open now, like the home side is, there's no windows, and they would get a little wet now, just like they do for the last 15 years, is what I'm saying. It's both our press boxes are open now. That would also be open. Therefore, whatever they got wet the last 15, 16 years or longer, would be the exact same situation.
So Jim, there's times when there's no TV station at one of our games, correct?
Correct. We have one or
So-
two or none. Correct. Yep.
So in those cases, then we aren't worried about that, but our coaches then are still in the enclosed press box as we designed. And they're not then moving depending upon if a TV station's there or not.
I could put print media on the visitor side, because if not, you're gonna have 4 or 5 visiting coaches with a huge area that they'd be over there all by themselves. They'd actually have more room on the visitor side as visiting coaches than the home coaches. Or I could keep the scoreboard operator and the 2 scoreboard operators on the visitor side like they are now. That's not ideal because of hand signals of the officials. We'd like to put them on the home side where they belong.
And with the new technology of a new scoreboard, that will need to be in an enclosed
Correct.
press box, so.
And we don't know how many that will take to run that. Right now, it's 2. One does down and distance, and one is specifically clock and possession. So.
Print media draws the short straw.
Yeah, they're out.
No offense to the print
No
media.
offense.
No offense.
Yeah, we just added a new time
Rudy,
clock.
we'll give you an umbrella that says Easton, don't worry about it.
High school football is now having
Good
a
coach.
40-second, a 25 40-second clock installed. That's instituted this year, and since we don't have that, this year's a grace period for us, so the official will keep that on the field. But next year, we will have that clock, and we will need a person to run that.
No,
Well,
actually,
from
the
this,
official will
I
run.
mean, for what the local TV stations give us monetarily, why should their straw be any bigger? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Listen,
You
I
told me to
just-
say.
I asked that question.
We just wanted to bring up the concerns that Josh brought to our attention, and let everybody know that's gonna be a little different with TV. And I think we all agree, we take we get the big straw, and the TV stations know where to go.
Yeah.
Okay, so the preference then is to keep it the way it currently is with RCN on one side, service on the other?
Yes.
Okay, so, because it's another agenda item tonight as far as,
No, I thought we couldn't fit everybody, even with one TV station on the home
Yeah, I
side,
thought you were putting both on the same side then.
both on the visitors.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was still 1 and 1.
But it's still moving people over
As
that.
long as we can fit, sure.
So can we, because I think there's really some Jim
exactly with that?
and Greg.
I would have to go back and sit and
Okay,
write
so-
down each
Well, that's what I'm saying.
of the
So
clock
on the home
operators. I
side,
have to do that.
how many coaches do we currently have?
Kyle, 4 or 5 will be up there?
4 to 5,
Five.
okay. So
Five
let's
go up
let's
now.
go with 5.
To high.
Okay.
4 and a camera operator, or video operator, so it's
Okay,
5 total.
so 5 total. So then announcers and spotters,
3.
3.
And now you're at E.
Okay, and then the scorekeeper, and then the clock would be 3, right?
It'll be, yeah,
Yeah.
3 or 4.
Okay.
4.
So let's 4.
And that's 5 or 6 left.
16, say 4 left.
And then the TVs
Each
usually
TV
have
they have 2 announcers.
2 announcers, right?
So that would be 4 on a big night.
Okay, so far we have 8.
TV stations told me they would have 3 for each station.
And then you went down, you had 6.
3 announcers for each station.
They have to wait, oh God.
Well, one could be down there.
Okay, so that's 6, that's 10, 8.
So again, if you kick out Rudy and kick out the radio guys on the side.
Rudy doesn't freeze up
Give me
four
five.
spots.
Give me five.
Cameras remain on the home side.
Still on the away side, if you look
Yes.
right
Right, so
Right.
TVs would remain up top. Now,
So then you're still only at 3.
currently we have 16 right there, is that what we're saying?
16 seats.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Is, if we expanded, because is that up a little bit higher than in the back? It's like
It is.
Okay, so is there any way to 2 seats in there?
Yeah, I think from an egress perspective, that would be fine to add a couple more seats.
That is on the inside or is that on the outside?
That's the inside of the press box.
Inside. All inside the press box. So in reality, if we added 2 seats there, we are covering what it would make for us to be able to have all the TV people, the clock keeper, the scorekeeper, the announcers, the spotters, and all the coaches.
Expand that platform up there.
Yes, if you want TV on this side. And the reason I'm saying this is because Vanderveer is also on the agenda for tonight for discussion. So if the future development, whatever that might be, whenever that might be, would hinder trucks from getting back there, then your TV broadcast is no longer from the home side. So that's also part of the discussion tonight.
Okay, so let's just establish first that if we're doing, we can put, and the Vanderveer is, we can put 16 people in this by adding 2 seats to that, and we would cover everybody. And then we can worry about what we're doing with Vanderveer.
I can confirm if, from an egress perspective, we can add 2 more seats. If we can, however many people you want to put up there, who they work for, that's up to you.
Cameras are
Up top.
Up top.
Up top.
Up top.
So now everybody's on the home side again.
Not the, we have the other coaches
Well,
and depending on how the scorekeepers, but I'm just saying is you would at least have enough people,
seats for people.
seats for people that, depending on what happens. That if service electric would still go on the other side, then they go on the other side, like they are now, or the scorekeepers or whatever, but you can establish that at least you have 16 people that can fit into there.
So, and then that would mean all the trucks are on that side too. So you're saying you're gonna take 10 spots in the back, well, we don't even know what we're doing back there yet, but 10 spots for, how many trucks? 4?
If they each bring their HD truck, which are the massive ones, they're taking up parking spots.
Yes.
See, in the past, I would park 4 or 5 of them under the home stand, under the archway.
Yeah.
So when their announcers came, we brought them in the gate, drove them underneath. They came in, they were one of the last ones to leave the stadium, so they parked under the home stand. That's gone now. There is no under home stand parking. So those 3 or 4 or 5 cars are now outside of the lot, as well as the HD trucks, which are huge trucks. There's 90 spots in the lot, just some people don't get a parking pass.
Is that all that, Josh?
I did not get all that. So if somebody could succinctly summarize it for me, I'd greatly appreciate it.
We're going to add 2 more seats into the home side press box if possible. And then all of the TV stations will be on top of the platform above the home press box. And then Jim will determine who, based on who's attending from all the different media outlets, who is sitting on the visitor side for those times where we have everyone present.
Okay, I still think
The cameras
stations might want to still have one
Yes.
on the top of the stands, at the top row, and then the other.
The other's going to
on
take up
top of the
seats.
press box.
That's where we lose seats.
Yes.
Well, we already knew that.
Currently, we lose some on the visitor,
Oh.
and now we won't. You'll lose them all on the home side.
I mean, we've lost some on the home side this year too, right, Jim?
I block out top 3 rows, 1 through 5, it's 15 seats when the TVs are there. I don't sell them as season tickets. So that's 30 currently on the home side.
We're talking 2 games?
Depending on, I can't sell them because if the TV crew shows up and then people have reserved seats, somebody's going over the back row.
But I mean, the average is how many televised games?
It depends. Sometimes RCN will come twice, service will come 3 times to a game.
And the number of home games we have?
5.
Okay, so for 2 home games, we gotta deal with, things are a little out of,
But we're gonna have to double that platform, whatever you're gonna put there, Josh, by the 30-yard line or 25 for those cameras. You would have to make sure there's enough room for what they need in that area.
The cameras, one company would have a camera on the top row on a portable platform. Okay? Theoretically. The other company would be stationed where you see the two TV cameras here. Again, this is obviously just a rendering, but the other station could broadcast from this platform instead of on top of the stands.
Why again can't they both just go?
I just don't know from spatially if it's going to work having 4 cameras getting in their way, each other's way. And if they can make it work, great. I don't want to speak for the TV company as far as how they do their broadcast.
I don't think they're going to be happy with only cameras at the 50-yard line. They set up at the 25, 30-yard line at every stadium, and that you better run that by them.
Well, that's how you get your angle for down towards the goal line.
But we're putting one of the companies up there anyway.
But they wouldn't be their only cameras.
You got the
I'll be in touch tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah, somebody gotta do the minutes.
Work it out, man.
And just, so we talked about 16 seats in the press box. Just, if I'm counting right, did anybody count, because there's a brand new scoreboard, correct? So somebody has to run that computer.
Yeah, he said 3
to run
people.
that scoreboard, is that one of them?
Yeah, 3 people, he said, 2 now.
And then one for the clock keeper.
And remember, then you're gonna have an actual PIAA official up there running a 25 or 45-second clock.
So would that, is that separate?
That's brand new by PIAA.
Is that separate from us meeting?
Yeah, that's another person for the scoreboard. So you're actually talking 3 scoreboard, 1 person to run the entertainment scoreboard.
Right, so, yeah, so we counted 4.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, we're gonna work this out.
All right.
I got it.
I think we've exhausted this part of the agenda.
So, good luck summarizing that.
He's doing a good job running it.
Chair summary.
Whatever job
All right.
You're doing a good job, Josh.
Okay, last
Keep
but not
scrolling.
Amy,
Thank you.
you're going to be giving us a preview of
Correct. Josh,
your patient is for the last almost 3 hours.
I know, we should have let some of these people go first. We let Jim go first, he's still here.
Good evening, everyone. I will be very efficient. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Amy Bacadoro. I am with the West Ward Community Initiative, which is a new program in the West Ward neighborhood. We are a program of the Greater Eastern Development Partnership, or GEDP. So I'm very excited to show you some opening concepts for Vanderveer Park. This came out of our one of the last Facilities and Grounds Committee meeting, asking to look at some possible design concepts as we move forward here and get some feedback from the board as well. So we've engaged architectural firm Site, which is out of Chicago, Illinois, for these beginning drawings. And I'd also like to acknowledge that Two Rivers Health and Wellness gave us some grant funding to have these drawings done, so they were very helpful in that as well. Before we look at Vanderveer, I just wanted to bring up this case study. This is a project that Site did in Chicago. The school you see is to the left in the center area there. It's an elementary school.
and they also have a ginormous parking lot behind there. This was a program that Chicago did an undertaking of all their open spaces and working to green them, a lot with stormwater programming as well. Just to put this into context, the depth of this is similar to Vanderveer, and it's about half the length of Vanderveer. So as we look at the finished project, you can see what they were able to put on that size of a space there. They incorporated multi-purpose field and track, multi-game courts, school-themed playground equipment, seating areas, decorative fencing, stormwater management, through rain gardens, native planting gardens, permeable asphalt and other materials. And you'll see that as we move through some of the other concepts that they gave to us for Vanderveer. So Vanderveer looked at our West Ward neighborhood plan. They pulled out information that was given to us from community feedback, also some recommendations that were set forth from the plan as well. They also took feedback from Principal Jones, who also talked to some of her teachers there at the elementary school, came back to us, and we also went through our city's public works director as well for some feedback. You'll see the main focuses include open green space, keeping the basketball courts, outdoor classroom space, and passive recreation as well that would satisfy the neighborhood. And the ability to have this space also utilized for neighborhood events would also be considered here as well. So there she is, pretty parking lot right now. As we just talked about 90 spaces. 2 basketball courts. There's a small pavilion there, kind of top right, along with a very aged playground system. Obviously, really not any kind of green space there as well. So I'll offer the 2 concepts here in comparison. You'll find them on the last page of the packet that I passed around. You'll also find more detailed information in that packet as well. So I was just trying to highlight some of the items that are in that packet as an overview for tonight's presentation. So this, in the side-by-side comparison, the biggest piece here that you'll notice is the parking piece. In the concept on the top, they utilize parking as a shared space on the basketball courts that are there on the left-hand side, whereas in concept 2, it gives dedicated parking lot surface space and then also additional overflow spot space on the other basketball courts there in the bottom right. So again, these are just concepts, and as I move through here with some of the pieces to them, it's not really an either-or kind of concept. It's really just to stir a lot of conversation if we decide to move forward with looking at Vanderveer concepts here. So here's concept number 1. So some of the main elements include nature and play, pavilion and outdoor seating, fitness stations. There's a soccer field, a U10 soccer field, multi-purpose field, 2 full-size basketball courts. It currently encompasses 23 parking spaces on those basketball courts. It includes a walking path that circles both the field and the playground area, seating, gathering spaces, obviously ADA accessibility. You'll notice this concept utilizes the entrance at the ramp that currently exists off of 12th Street near the basketball courts. And it also adds additional entrance spaces along Spring Garden and a larger plaza-like entrance there at Spring Garden and 11th Street as well. So some of the major highlights to this concept 1 is having a shared street between Paxinosa's backyard and the playground so that there's an easier cross between the 2, also traffic calming as well, and getting people to utilize that space. It also has the upgraded basketball courts there, shade structure areas for use by the students for open classroom space, which was a direct request out of Paxinosa. Playground equipment that combines both traditional equipment and also nature features. And lastly, the 40 by 60 yard soccer field, which is a U10 rated soccer field. So that's what that footprint would look like. Again, a lot of these concepts are referenced in the more detailed concept packets there. You'll find a lot more imagery and suggestions of possibilities there as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Do you happen to know how many U10 soccer fields are available in the city right now?
That I do not know.
Or if anybody might know off the top of their head?
U10 in the city?
Yeah. Yeah, do you know how many are there in the city?
Well, Eastern U9 plays on the south side, there's one field.
There's one at High, yes, that's a High, okay, I knew there was a field at High, I didn't know how much that was.
There's another one on the other side of the south side, the park that I cannot pronounce. It's called. Yes, Black Hour, that's it.
Okay.
Pretty close.
So at least two that we know.
Yeah, and then Hackett also has park as well. So.
Hackett is the one, there's a baseball field there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hackett Park.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you,
Yep.
just curious.
So looking at concept 2, instead of the more all-encompassing space like concept 1 had, this one breaks the seating and gathering plazas apart from your play areas. It gives multiple unique spaces. Landscape is also incorporated here more, plays into the divides and creates additional seating and play areas. It also shows a surface treatment to the street to help connect the two parks. And also additional entrance plazas that you find pretty much around the entire park area there as well. This also shows, as I mentioned, the dedicated parking lot footprint. This one would allow for 26 vehicles. You'll also notice the field is a little bit smaller then to get more dedicated parking spaces in there. This does also then encompass a track, a walking or running track around it, similar to the one of the first images we looked at as well. And then the 3 basketball courts you see in the upper right-hand corner are smaller than traditional basketball courts, but they allow for multi-game play. So it wouldn't just be confined to basketball courts; they could be used in other ways as well. So you can see that kind of footprint, and something like that could also double as more parking as well. This one also shows the separation of kind of your older age bracket basketball from your younger age bracket of playground equipment too, with that field in between them. So another concept to think about. So here's some imagery that kind of goes along with that. Again, you find more detail in your packet there. So again, just some initial concepts and just to start some conversations on needs, preferences, uses moving forward. It also gives you a concept of footprints for a lot of these options too, and what you're looking at for the ability for space in here. So my question to the board tonight is, we would really like to seek your approval to begin moving forward with more concepts on this, more refinement on a plan. As you notice up at the top of the GEDP logo is there, the Westward logo is there, and the City of Easton's logo is there, and Louis Campos, who's the city administrator, is here with me this evening. We are very much, and they are very much dedicated to hoping to have an improvement plan for the neighborhood for a green space there, and we'd love to partner with the school district on that. And so moving forward, would really like a blessing in that regard. If that should happen, we'd like to establish a working group with members from the school board, with Principal Jones, the city and the rec department and GEDP, looking at physical design, resource development, and then programmatic aspects that would all tie together as we start looking at funding for Vanderveer as a phase 2. Loosely looking at presenting some kind of plan back to the school board in early 2020. Again, using GEDP and city to leverage some grant dollars with the support of the school board and finding funding for this project. And then hopefully, should that happen, we could begin as a phase 2 after Cottingham is completed as well.
Amy, would you say that with the partnership with the school district, the grant funding may be easier to come by?
Most definitely, yes.
Amy, I got a really quick question. These are absolutely stunning, gorgeous. I mean, I love them. Is there, any objection though to moving some of this actually over to Paxnosa? If we're gonna do the walkway there and allow kids to cross over, would we be able to expand some of this over to there? And maybe have a more, and I hate to say more parking, but, to compromise a little bit and to still have what we need to have and have parts of it there. And I'm only saying that is because 1 and 2 and 3, it seems like a beautiful transition over to the side, and we can utilize some of that since there's a park right there too.
Right.
So we wouldn't have to put dollars into an actual playground. We could use some of those other nature things and some of these other options.
I think what we'd really like to get out of this is a place that would also work well for the neighborhood as well. So it would be a shared space between the school district and the neighborhood. So as long as that can exist between the two spaces, I think that's a great win-win. So using city resources, using GEDP resources, I think that's what we'd like to see out of it, is make sure that the neighborhood is satisfied as well.
I mean, if no one objects in the board, I mean, we should probably be partnering with them so that we can come up with a compromise, so that we don't, I don't mind taking away parking area, but we can get as many as we can, but still have what we need to accomplish and use that side. We're opening ourselves up to a bigger, maybe we actually could put even something over there that's U10. We have the green space, right? So utilizing it in a better way might help.
Well, I think step 1 is the board making a commitment via a future agenda item for an engagement with all parties to move forward on this. I think that's just step 1.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think we have to talk about that other area because, we just got done fencing it in, and in essence, if we want to do this type of thing, maybe we would have to adjust the fences and everything to open that up more.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that, but yeah.
I would say, at what point do you see a timetable for the board to make the official engagement with all agencies? What time frame are you looking at?
I think the sooner we can get started is helpful. Grants grants come and go, so the sooner that we can get parties around a table and start fleshing out details, resources, programming, it helps with applying for grants to show what we have and what we're looking at. It also sets a budget to the project as well, which helps us aim where we need to. So the sooner we can, the better.
It's the type of thing we're only just going to go ahead.
Right.
Sorry, Jody. Go ahead.
All right. The project in Chicago that they did, do you have an idea of how much that cost, or how much something like this we're talking about is costing?
I don't, and this is, the concepts that they've laid for us, there's a lot of variables in there. You're seeing fields that could be natural grass, they could be turf, you're seeing surfaces, a lot of hardscaping in there, so it's kind of up in the air. I do not know what the Chicago project costs, and that was also part of, they did multiple schools throughout the city of Chicago, so I'm not sure how that could compare to what this is. Yeah.
Other questions right now for Amy? Thank you.
I got one more question though.
Go ahead.
I mean, whoever donated that's really awesome that they did all this work. But I do have a question. Would we be having Randy do ours? I mean, if we're going to start to compromise and start to design that, we should make sure that.
Well, I think that all has to be flushed out.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure we have 2 people doing designs now, so we want to make sure that. Perfect.
And obviously, we're on a time frame that this would all have to move forward. If you looked at their timetable, we'll all have to move forward after the stadium is completed. Okay, this is not going to be during the stadium reconstruction. This is going to have to be afterwards. Okay, but you need to start within the 2020 year to be able to get all of this in the works.
Although if some of this stuff is moved over to the other side, they could be
Well,
starting over there. I mean, I'm just saying, we should.
We're in the early stages of a work in progress here, more than anything else.
I think the first step is that we have to prove that they continue moving ahead on phase 2.
And we are
establishing not working.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
I
agree,
think,
that's a
you know,
big step, that's.
I think in summary, you can probably put that like on the next agenda, at least to get that moving so they know
Yeah.
that there's something there.
Yeah.
Next school board agenda or next?
No, I'm thinking
No,
the
June
25th.
25th.
Oh, wonderful.
To just establish that we're gonna move forward with
Yeah.
talking about phase 2 now and looking at signs.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, that's a big step in this process, trust me.
Yeah, absolutely.
45 minutes for a press box and
A
lot less time for this.
Efficiency is.
Thank you for all your hard work and your patience.
Okay, with that completes the buildings and grounds. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make any comments on any of the agenda items? Please sign in and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Amanda Williams. I live at 1131 Spring Garden Street, which is directly across the street from that lovely park that Amy just presented. And I would just like to stand up here to say that I'm a huge advocate for those sketches. My goodness. I really feel that Mrs. Jones and her staff is doing a hands down, unbelievable job at that Paxinosa school. Miss Janine over there, just reaching out to the community and engaging the residents and everything that's going on. And that part is the icing on the cake. I couldn't be more proud of Amy and her staff for all the research that they did in reaching out to other facilities that have done similar projects elsewhere in similar environments. And I really think that this would be something amazing for the residents. I know that you spoke about maybe moving some of that over to within the Paxinosa complex. I don't think that's a bad idea, but as a resident, and you all remember me, I was like, we speak for the trees up here, like the Lorax, right? Begging for green space. And even though Paxinosa is done and it's lovely and you said we would get green space, because the gate is supposed to be unlocked to the fence, but it's not. We've checked. So it's never unlocked and the community never has access to that space unless Mrs. Jones is doing her popsicles on the playground or one of her other awesome activities. So here I am again, still saying that green space in the West Ward would be absolutely awesome. The renderings that you just saw, I don't think there's anything that would rival anything like that anywhere around here. Maybe some of the parks that we see now in town, but I just wanted to get up and say I think it's really great. And I think it's terrific that you're considering it, and I would love to be included in future discussions and just see what happens. And parking at Cottingham. Who parks in the parking spaces? In the Cottingham parking spaces?
Officials, coaches, workers, board members that order season tickets.
And then?
And the press people.
And then? Who takes up all those other ones?
Without 20 handicap.
But then who takes up all the other
That's it.
spaces?
That's it.
No,
Then 30 or 40 are sold by the varsity. We don't dictate those.
It's the band members.
No, I don't know.
It's the band members.
Band students do not park in that lot.
No, yeah, we have to talk about shuttling people there. I mean, we should talk, yeah, we have to really look at who parks there.
Yeah,
Decide
yeah.
that.
And
Because they can
definitely-
park over in Paxinosa as well now. We
They
have that.
can. And in addition, during the day, there's about 5 or 6 cars in
PTA
that
was
park.
selling those spots?
Paxinosa PTA is selling those spots over there.
Oh, that's right.
That's one of their fundraisers.
Mhm.
So they're not available.
Oh, you mean over at the school?
Right.
My goodness, I don't even know what to say about that. I have no comment. We'll
Thank
get a
you.
working group together and that'll
Thank
be
you.
the start.
Oh, and one more real quick thing. As a homeschooler in the district, thank you to all of you for how wonderfully you work with the homeschooling community. We really appreciate it. Easton is top-notch in homeschooling community for how well you work with us. And thank you from the homeschooling community for working well with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments on tonight's agenda item? Seeing none, George, in summary, the items from the capital campaign with those couple updates, Alyssa, should go into the agenda for the 25th. The items for Cottingham for the alternate for soccer and the press box. I don't know that there's much of an alternate for the press box, it's just informational at this point. But the alternate for the soccer lighting should go into the agenda. And then also for being in your part to take the next step and everything should be on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was, Josh, had any alternates with respect to the TV station. You know, alternates for that?
Don't go there again.
Okay, thank you.
So those would be the three items and that concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Other business? Okay. Public to be heard on non-agenda items? Okay. Prior to adjournment, thank you to the administrators and the individuals that are here this evening for this meeting. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.